He grew his law firm from 5 million to 50 million in 6 years by investing 25% of his revenue, adjusted quarterly. Their revenue grew, they adjusted at marketing budget every single month. And I asked him, what was the main attributor to your success? And he said, the reason why we grow so fast is that our competitors do not have the balls to invest that much money into growth.
And then you just start posting content and then nothing happens. And then we talked about this, like a lot of times they might go 1, 2, 3 months with it, nothing happens, and then they quit. So the first thing is it's a long game. So to build a solid audience, to get out to more people, it does take time and effort, but there's ways that you can invest into your brand to actually fast track results.
Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to another amazing podcast episode of GLF with Joe McCarthy from JEM Media. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey man, great to have you. Before we hit the record button, you and I talked about social media extensively and how it works for professional service companies like law firms. In your own words, share some stories, how this thing works, why it fails more often than it works, and what are the key success factors for law firms, for lawyers, to get more business through social media.
Yeah. So, I mean, with social media, Sasha, like the thing is with lawyers, for instance, a lot of times their team is just going to say, hey, you got to be on social media, start posting content. And they just start posting content and then nothing happens. And then we talked about this, like a lot of times they might go 1, 2, 3 months with it, nothing happens, and then they quit. So the first thing is it's a long game. So to build a solid audience, to get out to more people, it does take time and effort, but there's ways that you can invest into your brand to actually fast track results. So that's another thing we can cover is like what to invest into, because I think there's a common misconception just generally, but especially with lawyers, where it's like they think that it's cheating to invest into your brand, when in reality, some of the most successful law firms and lawyers and personal brands, they're investing tens of thousands of dollars into their brands, into their marketing, their content, and they're crushing it because with social media, I mean, as we all know, most people are just looking at their screens all day. So it's essentially like a digital billboard. So if you're constantly trying to get more business, the easiest, like lowest hanging fruit way to get business as a lawyer is with social media. So I would say just step one, like for lawyers is, you need to refine your messaging, figure out who's your target audience, how to speak to them in a way that actually produces results and gets you business, because you could post general content as a lawyer and maybe it's not going to hit, maybe it's not going to get reach or engagement. And so that's one big mistake I see with a lot of you guys is like you'll start posting, but you don't really have a direction. You don't really have a concise like messaging in your content that actually gets your audiences to like take action with you. So I'd say those are like the main things. And then, like I mentioned, investing into your brand is also key to like actually scale up and start building like a snowball effect.
Investment is very obvious to me, and that is, Coca-Cola needs no introduction, but their annual advertising budget is into 9 figures. Despite worldwide brand awareness, they plow tens of millions of dollars into advertising every single month. Why? Because they know that once they turn off that channel or advertising period, Pepsi is going to start taking away their market share. So it makes sense. Law firms, the larger the law firm, the more they tend to invest. But we know from having worked with numerous law firms, you got to invest a percentage of your revenue, present and future, into growing your business. So depending on how competitive the market is and your practice area, You may be investing 10, 15, 20, in some extreme cases, 25% of your revenue into growing your business. By the way, a good friend of mine, Louis Scott, he grew his law firm from 5 million to 50 million in 6 years by investing
Hmm.
25% of his revenue, adjusted quarterly. Their revenue grew, they adjusted at marketing budget every single month. And I asked him, what was the main attributor to your success? And he said, the reason why we grow so fast is that our competitors do not have the balls to invest that much money into growth. We
Hmm.
can just outspend them every single quarter, and that's why we grew so much so fast. So
Yep.
I'm 100% with you as far as investment.
Hmm.
What about, you mentioned, you started with this actually, you said longevity, like how long you're going to stick to this, 2, 3 months and people give up.
Yeah.
Today, when social media has reached a point of maturity, and I'm talking about, let's talk about B2C law firms, personal injury, estate planning,
Hmm.
family law, criminal defense. Uh, there's definitely maturity on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. I think at this point, if it's not going to be banned before this podcast actually
Yeah.
goes live, we're
Yeah.
recording this very early January of 2025. So if TikTok is going to be there, it's still it by now it is a mature platform. Like what does it take to break through, meaning gain some meaningful traction in your geographical market, just your geographical market, because all
Hmm.
lawyers or law firms are bound by certain geography. Like what would it take to do it across any of these platforms? And how much content do you need to put out there? And what type of content?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually have kind of a controversial take with content and like volume. So a lot of times people say initially post, 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 do a post a day, 2 posts a day, post like 50 to 100 times per month. And I always say to that, like, especially if you're just starting out, you don't have like a massive audience yet. I think it makes more sense to focus on the quality of the content and the messaging that you have in there versus the volume. Like you could post 60 very mediocre pieces of content, mediocre editing, and like mediocre value, and it's not going to go anywhere, right? Versus you could post 30 times, like half the amount, but maybe you're still consistently posting 3 to 5 pieces of content per week, and it's like really top-notch stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I would focus on, especially in the beginning, because if you think about it, if you're trying to get your audience to engage with your content, you're almost asking them for like a favor, like you're asking them for a gift, which is their time, a like, a comment on the post. So if you think about asking your audience for a gift 2 times a day, every single day, they're naturally going to get bored of it. They're naturally not going to want to engage. So you almost like get your audience burnt out, the little audience that you do have, versus, let's say you start just doing 2 to 3 pieces of content per week. So it's like a good cadence, but you're able to have time to really focus on the messaging, the copy, the quality, the editing. So if you have really solid content, now that starts to take off. You start to really build a solid audience. And then you do get to the level where it's like, Gary Vee or Tony Robbins, and you have these massive audiences. At that point, then I think it makes sense to just, flood your account with content because you've already built that base audience, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. But when it came to quality, you still said 30 posts. So
Hmm.
it's not 2, 3 posts a month.
Yeah.
It is dozens of posts per month.
Yep.
You can get away with producing like few videos a month.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely still need to, and you also have to just kind of weigh the reward, right? It's like, if you're putting in, let's say 8 hours worth of like focused effort on creating content, which you can get it down to 6 to 8 hours producing 30 videos in a month. You can get it down to a few hours if you have the right
Yeah.
systems and processes in place, which we can go over. But even if you put in 8 hours of time into creating this content, if you're able to, again, build the audience correctly, put the right value in your content, start to build an audience, you're building some credibility on your page, you should be able to lock in a few clients. Like if you're doing everything properly and you're consistent with that content, like you shouldn't have any trouble getting a couple clients per month additional to what you're currently doing just on Google or with the billboards. And then let's say out of like those 3 clients that you get per month, they start to refer people, and it kind of just builds this web of like referrals and clients. So you also have to just weigh, like, if you're putting in 8 hours, is that worth getting 2, 3, 4, 5 clients? If it is, continue to do it and continue pushing. If it's not, then we want to figure out systems and processes where we can minimize like the max amount of time that you're putting into social media, but you're still able to get a good benefit and you're able to post like relatively consistently.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you just quantified it. And I believe that everything that you commit yourself to, you should be budgeting for it either with dollars or with your calendar.
Hmm.
So, for example, Mr. or Mrs. Law Firm owner, as you're watching this, think about it this way. If you're going to commit to producing 30 videos a month, you can budget it on your calendar and say, I am going to do 3 hours every other Friday a month, or 6 hours one Friday. But I don't like that because if you get sick or your child gets sick, or there's a case
Yeah.
and you have to go to court that day unplanned, anything happens,
Yeah.
then it will be harder for you to find the time on the calendar. So twice a month, you budget 3 hours per day to producing content, and you have a link saved on your Google Chrome or whatever
Hmm.
browser you have to a spreadsheet, like a Google Sheet. And there, whenever an inspiration comes to you, you write down that content idea there, or you ask ChatGPT to give you a list of content ideas for a family law attorney in Denver,
Hmm.
Colorado, to post on social media, 60 seconds each. It will give you 500 different topics, and every week or every other week, you pick 15 of them. And this is how I approach recording content. I
Hmm.
either do it when I am talking to a client and we record it, or I jot down questions that clients or prospects ask me, and then I just record them like it was a Q&A session.
Hmm.
So Peter, who I spoke to earlier today, asked me this question, so I'm going to record a 60-second answer. If I didn't record our meeting, and that's going to be a video. That's going to be one of my videos. This way, it's very relevant because I know that prospects like Peter asked me that question. I didn't have to think about what I'm going to talk about because I answered that question 1,000 times in the past.
Hmm.
And content creation becomes incredibly, incredibly simple, but it starts with committing the time on the calendar
Yeah.
and committing to quality of videos. Talk to folks about what does it mean to produce quality content other than content just being interesting. Is it still okay to produce very simple content like we're recording right now
Hmm.
without highly post editing it, meaning making it very flashy with all kind of effects? Or do you need to today in 2025, or do you need to make it fancy?
So when I say quality, I don't even necessarily mean that it has to have like amazing editing, super nice camera. Like I spent probably the first 4 years of me building my brand just posting on my iPhone and
Yep,
editing it all myself. So like I don't
yep.
even think that people necessarily need to spend a ton of money and time on like super nice and fancy editing. Like can that help in certain circumstances? Yes, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to go viral or you're not going to reach people if it's not that. So again, when I say like quality of content, I mean like the quality of the message, the quality of the value you're putting into it. So like a lot of times what you want to do as a lawyer is not just give like riffraff, like just random tips and advice. A lot of times you want to almost take your past experiences or like your past stories that you've had with clients or even just like in your own work, and then almost tailor that towards your content. That way it becomes like your own voice, because I see people in fitness, lawyers, like they almost all like regurgitate each other's content in a way where it's like they'll just take another idea, like they
Yep.
saw an idea go viral on like lawyer Mike's page and just basically redo it themselves, or there's these trends and these audios, and it's almost like there's not a lot of uniqueness. And a lot of times people get that really one-to-one connection, like that deep connection from your page if you're posting like true content, like you just like saying like, hey, I had this client from a couple weeks ago and he was struggling with X, Y, and Z. I just told him like, hey, if we could do this, this, and that, it's going to help you. And you just kind of go through a story that you've previously had that like a lot of other people might get value from. That's the kind of stuff that's going to resonate. And then the other thing is almost creating like perspective shifts. Like you can give off like, hey, here's 3 tips if you're hit by a car, right? And then people are going to maybe save that and be like, okay. But if you can almost create like shifts in your consumer's mind where it's like, oh, I didn't really think about it that way, or oh, that's a good point. It's like that kind of stuff where you almost create perspective shifts, not just you giving a surface level piece of value content. I think that stuff also like makes it seem like it does make you more of an authority in your space, and it kind of positions you as like someone who like knows what they're talking about. So those are some like things when I say like quality content. You really want to focus on the messaging, like how are you saying it. Obviously, you want to be confident, and you want to just edit it in the correct manner where like you're not wasting time just adding filler words, because like people's attention spans are like 2 or 3 seconds at this point. So like there's obviously some some things there where you do want to like edit it properly, but for the most part, I mean, you could have like a really long video that's not super well edited, but you have a really good message in there that like creates a perspective shift, and that kind of stuff will boost out way better than just a super polished video that just gives mediocre value.
Super interesting. So here's what you talked about: quantity and quality. And it sounds like quality was focused on authenticity of the message. So it comes from you
Mm-hmm.
rather than you're just copying and pasting what you heard from the more successful lawyers online. I'm not saying that
Yep.
they're better lawyers, but if they have like, well, you mentioned Mike, the attorney who does PI from
Yeah.
California, right? Who has millions of followers on TikTok. Like if you just copy and paste what he says, that's not very authentic. So it has to come from you. And as far as editing goes, simple editing.
Yeah.
It does not need to be highly produced videos. That would add a lot of cost to those videos. They
Yeah.
just need to be authentic. I think that like now, and when I say now, I'm talking about 2024. I think there is probably a greater shift toward authenticity in those videos than
Mm-hmm.
quality of production. Before it used to be like, well, 25 years, not 25 years, almost 20 years ago when YouTube rolled out. And YouTube this year is going to be 20 years old. They came out in
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah.
So when YouTube rolled out, video quality at first was awful.
Yeah.
And when it started getting better, I think the attention started shifting toward better produced videos. And I think now it's going to start shifting back to probably lower produced videos,
Mm-hmm.
fewer effects, as long as the messaging is very authentic. So yeah, there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with making it produced, like with special effects and whatnot, but it just has to be very authentic. But at the same point, I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of content, a lot of ideas are going to be regurgitated one way or another, because when you practice law in the state of Illinois, where I'm based, or state of Indiana next to us, or California, or New York, or Florida, where you are,
Mm-hmm.
there's only one right way to do this, right? So
Yeah.
you are going to be giving the same tips as everybody else does in your space. You
Yeah.
are going to be answering the same frequently asked questions, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to be unique. I think we have to be authentic.
Yeah.
But striving for uniqueness is going to really mess with your mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like you can just be like, and I made a video of this once, and it's like people think that they come up with all kinds of unique ideas that like have not been thought of. It's like there's billions of posts out there at this point. It's like you're not Aristotle. You're not going to necessarily come up with this like groundbreaking
Right,
idea that no one's
right.
thought of.
Not
It's
going to
like,
happen.
but the most important thing is like, yeah, take those ideas that are out there. Like for lawyers, obviously, there's specific things that you're gonna tick the boxes and probably make content on, but find a way to make it your own. Like take stories from your past life or past like clients that you've had and almost try to morph that into a piece of content where you film it for 45 seconds and you tell them like, hey, this is my experience, but this is what you got to do for X, Y, and Z. So there are ways that you can like take just like very commonly talked about topics, but still make it your own, if that makes sense.
Sure. So quantity, commitment to that quantity, commitment to authenticity. We also call it quality, but it's really
Yeah.
authenticity. Budgeting on the calendar, how much time you're going to invest into this. And let's talk about that investment. You mentioned 6 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours per month.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of people who are watching this podcast or listen to this podcast, it may sound like an awful lot of time. But whenever I talk to one of our clients, any of our clients, I ask them, where do you see the highest ROI on your time? Working on cases, managing your staff, or marketing that produces leads? And then we go through the math
Mm-hmm.
of what the leads are worth. For example, you get 10 leads, out of which 4 are actually qualified, out of which 1 actually signs up and turns into a case. If
Yeah.
you do divorces, mostly non-contested divorces, it's a $5,000 client.
Yeah.
If you do automobile accidents, your average case value in most states, unless all you do are quick settlements, is going to be around 50K. And your close rate is still going to be about the same. Like
Mm-hmm.
very well optimized teams will close 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10 of qualified leads, of non-qualified total volume of leads. So you get
Yeah.
10 leads, you sign 1 or 2 cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them that, all right, so if you're going to invest 8 hours of your time, and let's say using your math, you're going to, in some time, not month one, but in some time, you're going to start signing two, three, four cases a month. And those cases on
Hmm.
average are worth, let's take a low number of 30 grand.
Yeah.
And you start citing only three cases a month and you do it for 12 months. So that's 36 cases. At 10 grand, that's $360,000. And let's say that your total investment for all of this was 8 hours per month times 12, 96 hours. Let's round it up to 100 hours per year. You're going to invest a few tens of thousands of dollars a year into your marketing team working on all of that stuff, pushing it out, etc. So let's say that it's going to cost you, I'll use this, 100 hours plus $40,000. And for that money, you're going to get $360,000 worth of case, which is like a low number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's on
If
the
I
low end.
could do that, that's like getting a money print press and just
Hmm.
printing money. That's a great ROI. Can you actually get $360,000 for a 100-hour investment?
Yeah, I
That's
can easily.
$3,600 per hour.
Yeah, 100% easily. And the other thing too is like a lot of people don't think about the indirect business that you're going to be getting from this because
Right.
maybe your closing percentage is at like 20%, but then you look at these massive TikTok and Instagram lawyers and they've built such a brand and so much trust that pretty much anybody that comes to them like as like a lead automatically is like a hot
Yeah.
lead, like they're gonna invest with you, right? So the other thing we were talking about is just keeping top of mind. It's like you may be getting two or three leads from Instagram, but that doesn't mean that like all these other people that are coming to you as like
Right.
a case. It's like
Sure.
maybe they saw your Instagram post one random day and decided to save it, and now they're like, hey, I actually need a lawyer for this specific thing. They message you or they go to your website and your link in the bio and they book a consultation. It's like you never really know directly like how much business you're getting from Instagram. I just said two or three because I think directly from Instagram you should easily be able to do that like minimum if you're doing everything step by step and you're checking all those boxes that we talked about. But yeah, it just builds a lot of trust overall as well. Because like if someone goes to your Instagram, it's essentially your resumes, your new business card, especially with like these younger generations. You know, they don't really go to Google or they don't necessarily decide off of a billboard these days. Like maybe, 40, 50, 60. Yeah. But if you're trying to get like a future client, let's say they're in like their mid to late 20s or 30s, a lot of times they're just going to be on Instagram or social media. So it's going to be important to have some kind of social presence there, like some credibility, because that's the other stuff that's going to help to kind of build the trust and like automatically turn them into a hot lead versus like a cold lead that doesn't really know anything about you.
Yeah. And by the way, 40, 50, 60-year-olds, they're still going to check you out on social media. That will
Yeah.
not be the primary decision factor. And I get it that for most law firms, your prospects, your clients are 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, depending on your primary practice area. But chances are they're still going to check you out. They're going to
Hmm.
go to Google, find you online. They're going to check out your reviews. They will go to your social, look at your content, because that is like your first introduction to them, right? They
Yeah.
watch your video and they're like, I like this guy. I don't know if this guy is an asshole. Let me reach out to him.
Yeah. So you
Like
want it to
we
be
make
good.
the yeah we make those emotional decisions and then we rationalize them. I know that phrase is such a cliche, but it makes it no less true,
Yeah.
right? So social media presence. By the way, this is coming from a search marketing guy. My company does search marketing and nothing else, not social media. But I find that whether it's me or our clients, like people check you out on social. So having some social presence, even if it leads to business indirectly, is still very important. Speaking
Hmm.
of speaking of this, we know that some younger folks will use Instagram and TikTok and Facebook as a search engine. It's not a very high percentage, but they do.
Hmm.
My wife, who somewhat recently immigrated to this country, a little less than 3 years ago, she used Instagram as a search engine,
Yeah.
doesn't use Google. She comes from a country where Google was not a big thing, and so Instagram is her search engine. If there is data, and I just don't know if there is, but is there data on what percentage of consumers within certain demographics would use social media for search?
I don't know. That's a good question. I do know that, like, just statistically, like, you're 40% more likely to get business if you have an established brand. So, just but based off that stat, whether you're in real estate or you're a lawyer, like, having a brand, like, there's really only upside. Like, there's really no downside. Yes, you have to put time into it, but at the end of the day, you're almost guaranteed to get some kind of return on the time you put into that one way or another.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Is there, from your experience, is there a platform that's more favorable to lawyers, B2C lawyers specifically, personal injury, estate planning, criminal defense, family law, etc., than others. I understand it's not LinkedIn. Could be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Which one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased because Instagram, I mean, we've been crushing it for clients on Instagram since like 2017. So
Okay.
I would say Instagram is definitely the main platform you'd want to focus on. But that isn't to say that you don't want to go and post and almost like repurpose your content on other platforms because you do want to be somewhat omnipresent. But what I usually tell my clients is you want to focus on one platform until you build like a really solid audience, you're crushing it on that platform, and then it would make sense to go move into other platforms. So I would say let's focus on
Yep.
Instagram for a solid year or two and just really build the audience. Then drive them to YouTube, give them some more long form content. Because I feel like each one of these platforms has like a different purpose. Like YouTube is more like they want to like know you better. They want to get like deeper information because you can post much longer form
No, no,
content
YouTube
on
for sure
YouTube.
is a big time search engine.
Yeah,
It's second largest most used search engine after Google. So that
yeah,
is
but the
definitely for
thing is,
search.
is you can't grow very big or you can't grow very fast, right? So it's like
No, you
people,
cannot.
if you're like
Very mature
scared of
platform.
like putting in three months of work on Instagram without seeing results, I mean, you'll probably be putting 3 years on YouTube and still not seeing results. Which is why I say like build Instagram first because it's easier to build Instagram, versus
Yep.
YouTube. And then you can take that audience and you can say like, hey, we also have this YouTube channel. We post more long form content. Subscribe here. So you're almost like killing two birds with one stone by building up the Instagram because it's easier, and then taking that and driving it to YouTube.
Cool. Let's wrap this up by you sharing one or two relevant success stories of your clients, law firm owners, who you've taken from point A to point B, and they said, wow, these were great results. We actually are signing a lot more cases than we're used to.
Yeah, yeah. So one that comes to mind, this she's a lawyer out in California. Her name is Holly. So we scaled. She does like divorce. She's like a divorce lawyer. So she essentially went from having like 400 or 500 followers on her social media. That was probably 2 years ago. Is when we started working with her. Fast forward till today, she's over 250,000 at this point. And what I've noticed is that she's getting a ton of notice on like press articles. I believe she was featured in like Forbes and a lot of these high end like really top notch magazines. So she would be the first one that I came up with, and you can see she's also reaching a lot of people through her content. And that was one thing that she was struggling with, is like she was posting a lot of good quality content, and then she just wasn't reaching people, so she was getting like burnt out. So I hopped on a call with her and just really dove in and said like, hey, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can easily scale this up, get you out to more people, build your following. So obviously fast forward till today, she's scaled that up. I actually texted her, I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago, and she mentioned that she used to have like a goal of hitting, I think it was like 200 or 300K like per month. Like she had like a goal where it was like her yearly goal turned into her monthly goal, basically. So I congratulated her on that one. So I mean, obviously that just shows that like investing in a social media is skyrockets your results way faster. Kind of almost shrinks time
Very
as
nice.
well.
But did she ever talk about her case flow? Is she getting more cases off of that?
Yeah, guaranteed. And I could text her right now and say like, hey, based off of the past 2 years, how much success have you gotten? Like how much more cases are you getting per month? I guarantee you it's over a dozen per month.
Find that out,
Yeah,
email it to
I'll
me or
text.
text it to me, and then we're going to put it in the show notes. Because that's like really, that's the most important thing. Most people will not care about the followers, but they care well whether the number of followers leads to more cases signed. That's the
Yeah,
most important thing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. So
100%.
share another story.
Uh, Jen is another one, and she's actually friends with Holly, which is funny.
Okay.
I believe she's located in Texas, but she's also a lawyer, and she's scaled. I mean, obviously she's scaled her social media, gotten more engagement. I could text her. I guarantee you. I mean, because the thing is all these lawyers, they keep investing tens of thousands of dollars with me. Like they wouldn't be doing that if they weren't seeing some kind of return. Because it's like, let's say you invest 10K with me or 5K with me over the course of 4 months. It's like, if I don't get you a return one way or another, why would you take another 10 grand and invest it with me?
People
Right?
do stupid things with advertising dollars. That is, trust me, I've been doing this in this company. Tomorrow, January 3rd, will be 7 years.
Yeah.
I've seen people do stupid things with advertising dollars. So that's not a good indicator. Reach out to Jen also and ask
Yeah,
her,
yeah,
how long have you been working with Jen for?
yeah. Probably about a year and a half at
All right, so
least.
year and a half is long enough of period of time where she will
Yeah.
look into her Clear or whatever practice management software she uses and be like, come to think of it, A year and a half ago, I was signing 4 cases a
This
month, and
amount.
now
Yeah.
I do 9.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
that
ask.
measurable outcome that everybody is looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll get those measurable outcomes for sure, man.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Joe, if somebody wants to connect with you, a law firm owner, and be like, Joe, can you help me out sign up more clients through social media? What's the best way to reach you?
You can go to my Instagram at real Joe McCarthy, or you can do gemsocial.com, which is my VSL or to book a call.
Yeah.
Posting content pretty
Nobody
much every
knows
single
what
day.
VSL stands for, except for you
Video
and I.
video
Video
sales letter.
sales
It's
letter.
essentially a website for my call
Yeah.
booking. So you can either go to
Yeah.
gemsocial.com. I would recommend just go to my page at
Yeah.
real Joe McCarthy. Click the link, book a call. We can hop on a one-on-one consultation. I'll be there personally, and we just dive into your goals going into the new year. Figure out like where you're currently at, where you want to be, and if I think I can help you, then I would definitely love to add you to my repertoire of successful clients.
There you go. Joe, thank you so much for all the great insights. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.